Okay, hi everyone. So, welcome to my multimedia presentation. Today, the two organizations we're going to look at are the Royal Military College of Canada and Our Lady Seat of Wisdom. So, RMC is a military college of the Canadian Armed Forces here in Kingston. RMC exists to train office cadets who eventually serve in leadership capacities in the Canadian Armed Forces or the Royal Canadian Air Force, the Royal Canadian Navy, or the Canadian Army. It also is a degree-granting university that simultaneously trains military officers. The next organization is Our Lady Seat of Wisdom College. It is a Catholic post-secondary liberal arts college located in Barry's Bay, Ontario. Their identity as a Catholic institution is of primary importance. Our Lady Seat of Wisdom grew out of a 1999 study group called Mater Ecclesia in Covermere, Ontario, under the dictatorship of John Meehan. And the goal of Our Lady Seat of Wisdom was to provide affordable Catholic educations to students. So what stood out to me in each frame? So we'll start with RMC all at once. So in the structural frame, their commitment to their country was clear in the structural organization that identifies their linguistic capabilities, basically being bilingual, of primary importance. I had never really seen that before in a structural frame, so that stood out to me. In the human resource frame, there was a clear separation between staff members who are identified as civilians and the armed forces, whether that's faculty or that's students. Like there was a clear division between staff members and armed forces. Going too fast. So in the symbolic frame, what stood out for me for RMC was a sense of purpose. It really is ingrained and embedded in the curriculum and extracurriculars, in everything that the students do. There is this deep, abiding purpose to serve the country. It's not just an add-on. It's the central focus, and everything is built around that. And in the political frame, so at RMC, the Canadian flag would be this, like the symbol for the school and what it stands for. And the Canadian flag is adorned everywhere on their website, on their uniforms, on their like airplanes, militia, all of that. It was very, very intense. And so for Our Lady Seat of Wisdom, what stood out for me in the structural frame was how the organization really makes it a goal to educate the whole person. You can tell it's more than just a business to them. In the human resource frame, what really surprised me and what was actually kind of nice to see was that the school does focus on each staff member and students' personal mission, and they identify the personal mission of working at Our Lady Seat as a natural extension of job satisfaction if you're doing what you're meant to be doing there in terms of your job. Like that was really important, and that stood out to me, and that came across on their website. In the symbolic frame, what stood out to me for Our Lady Seat was that the academic calendar also simultaneously follows the Catholic feast day calendars, and they schedule certain events and celebrations based on special feast days in the Catholic faith. And I had never seen that before in a secular organization, like having these two parallel calendars, so that was interesting. And in the political frame, there were a lot of governing bodies for Our Lady Seat of Wisdom, so I was surprised by like the amount of governing bodies and boards of directors that they have for such a small college. So I just highlighted here a few points in my reflection between the two organizations, and essentially I found an interesting theme or some sort of a parallel, if you will. So RMC and Our Lady Seat have the same values, but they're oriented towards two different goods. RMC obviously towards Canada, and Our Lady Seat towards Jesus Christ. And the intensity of each educational organization is the same. And like even the values and the structures are very similar, but the underlying purpose, one being serving the country and one being serving God, is the only really difference in the way that they're organized. Their organization strengths are that they're committed to the common good, being patriotism and faith, and they both maintain a strict adherence to their overall purpose. And I mean, if I was, pressed to think of a critique, I would say an obvious area of improvement would be their political nature. There are many components of both hierarchies of both organizations that make it a little overwhelming. And it's a little difficult to discern the role of the government's committees and advisory boards. It's just hard to connect the pieces looking at their websites. But otherwise, both RMC and RLC have a dominant frame of symbolic, just because there is a greater purpose, a symbolic purpose to each education organization. So implications for practice. For the structural frame, I would say for me, this means making the time to flesh out mission and values before like really anything gets started. For the human resource frame, I would say this means that you must invest in your employees and you must invest early. For the symbolic frame, I would say that this highlights the relationship between work and existentialism, and that piece can't be overlooked. And finally, for political frame, I would say it's not as scary as it sounds. And for me, this means not underscoring the value of a hierarchy, and just to make sure that if you do have a hierarchy, whatever that looks like, to make sure that it's organized and distinct and clear to follow. Anyway, thanks for listening.